Welcome. We're at the work session for the Village Board of Trustees for the Village of Pleasantville. Today is Monday, February 22. First item on our agenda is two budget reviews, the first of which is for the Justice Court. So you want to walk us through there and see really pretty much straightforward as compared to last year, right?
That's right. Yep.
With the exception of a proposed increase in salaries.
That's right. Steph, we're on the expenditure side. So yeah, the full-time salaries are contractual, other than the two justices, which we'll chat about a little later tonight. And then the part-timers encapsulate the four court officers.
Is five.
So what's going on with that court officer line? That, I mean, it's the same as adopted, but 2020 actual was only 6,000. Obviously 2021 projected is COVID affected, right?
Yes, but there is room if to trim that a little if need be. It's because I don't know what the future will bring. If sometimes we need more than just two officers that manage court. It's been usually one downstairs to stop people to screen people as they come in with the COVID questions, temperature taking a log.
Right.
Then two upstairs, we have two of them to help people go through the magnetometer, one to stay in the lobby, one to stay inside and make sure people social distance.
Yeah, right.
Don't do anything. So that's why.
Clearly need to leave some flex in that schedule.
Yeah. But
okay.
Not knowing kind of went a little higher on that line, but it can maybe come down 1,000 or so if need be, I think.
Court overtime.
Yeah.
The same budget as last year, untouched so far this year. Is that because of COVID?
Yes, we have not had.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, and the clerk usually chooses to use it as comp time and not get paid.
Yeah.
But we have to budget in case they choose the pay option.
I understand. All right. And then line 210 was the JCAP grant that year.
Yeah.
Is there money floating around this year to be had?
There is another $1,900 that we're supposed to get shortly. That's going to be used for help us with virtual enhancements and for a cabinet to store PPE downstairs, in the courtroom. And then also a scrubber, an air scrubber.
Okay.
Because feeling even with some restrictions, some of the restrictions being eased, I think we're going to be going forward. This is going to be the new reality where we will have to take preparations for, and so
Certainly
I
true.
used the grant to request, and we were rewarded that. We just haven't received it yet.
And same with the line that follows. That was that what is that state aid line?
Yep, we got back. I got reimbursed for
1,900 that you
already spent.
So that's the 1,900 you just referred to, or?
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. Steno service for possible jury trials. You boosted that based on anticipating that there would be two trials?
Yes.
Right.
That's what we have scheduled so far. What we're waiting for is when we can, the okay from the state to say we can resume jury trials. Right now we can have trials. We can't have trials with jury. We can have bench trial.
Right.
But we do definitely have 2 cases where they requested a jury. So that could change, but we have to prepare for it.
Okay. Conference training seems fine. Supplies. What goes into that supply line?
The supply line,
Oh, I see. I scrolled.
yeah,
Maureen, scroll to the next page.
I went up.
Now we got a PPE line in there.
Yeah, went up a little bit because of PPE, because per administrative order, we are expected to, if someone shows up without a mask, we are to give them a mask. That hasn't happened. It's only happened about maybe 2-3 times when we were letting people in. It wasn't too often. So we've only distributed really 3 masks to people so far. But I don't know. I said prepare for, I give masks to the court staff, to the court officers. Usually they bring their own, but just in case we have it.
Okay.
So we're going to go, we go through masks.
Yeah.
And cleaning supplies. Me and Kristen, we clean down the courtroom before, and after. So we have wipes, we have that. We don't leave that to anyone else. We do that to make sure.
Audit report, that's just the written in the stars. Outside services, substitute village dues and subscriptions.
Yeah.
And then the interpreter obviously is also unknown depending on demand for it.
And just a note about the interpreter, like some courts use a interpreter service all the time, which costs double. We use that interpreter service only if it's something exotic, or if our regular Spanish speaking interpreter, which is the bulk of our interpretation, is not available. What we did with her is we made an arrangement with her that we pay her like about $100 per court session versus the $170. So tried to do what we can to.
Yeah, right. Then what was the story? Bank fees that were previously waived before in 2019?
Something that Chase threw at us about 2 years ago. They had always waived the fees, and they announced that they were no longer waiving them, and it's based on the number of transactions and activity in the accounts versus the balance on hand.
And this is a specific justice court account.
This is specifically for the court bank accounts.
Without much in it.
Right.
So the balance doesn't.
That doesn't cover the.
About $450 a month? Wow. Well, so.
But they still charge us for all the electronic transactions. A lot of our transactions right now are electronic through people paying through the web, through the credit cards, and they charge us for every single one. It's nickel and dime, everything.
This Chase,
Yes.
do we use any other banks with the court?
We can. I can look into.
I don't.
It's just unhooking them from everything right now because it's connected to all our web transactions,
right.
Credit cards. It's a lot of decoupling to do, and then you don't have any guarantee that as soon as you move to another bank, they won't pull the same thing.
Yeah, true.
I mean, they could do it. I could look into it.
So,
but right now, because all everything is, we all share Chase, it does provide us with some convenience.
Mary, they won't reflect the large balance of the village as a whole on this piece of it?
Well, they also assess fees on all of our other bank accounts. And we maintain enough of a balance that the fee last year for, well, they decided in 2020 to waive the fee because of COVID for anyone that was being billed annually, but accounts that were being billed monthly, like the court is, they did not waive the fee.
What kind of fees are we talking about for the village?
Well, we have not had to pay them yet.
No, 2020 we didn't pay them, but what about 2019?
Right. No, 2019, we did not. That's the first year that they started,
So we don't really know.
and they waived the balance at the end of the calendar year.
I know it's difficult. I feel like, I'm just saying for me, I'm feeling like we should just go screw Chase Bank. Let's go to Citibank or wherever, whoever.
Okay.
I know it's difficult. I
I
just,
can do,
Well, it's just, I mean, we have a whole lot attached to it on,
yeah,
not just on the village, on the court side, right? I mean, changing banks would be a pretty
yeah.
hours and hours and hours and hours of work, right?
Well-
Which is, of course, what they know. So,
Well,
I can look into it.
Yeah.
And it can be done.
well, I just,
So
you were
that's
saying,
what you
I'm
suggest,
just-
I will do it.
believe me when I say, it's not something that you've got to necessarily do. If you want to do it, you can do it. I was just expressing my frustration over.
Yeah.
But I don't need you to do it for me,
No,
Do it.
it's something, given this times where things are tight, if there's any way to be a little more to help, ease,
Yeah.
the fiscal burden of the village, I think it is worth exploring.
You also have to be able to make your cash deposits.
Yeah.
in town.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I mean,
really only have
right,
really Wells Fargo across the street.
right. So,
The only one we
look,
have to look
I
at.
mean, you can end up saving money and costing yourself more hassle. I do wonder, are these just kinds of fee decisions probably get made above the level of the local branch manager, I assume, right?
Oh, yes.
So, at any rate, if we have any leverage, we should use it. Probably we don't, right? All right, so let's go to the revenue side there.
Joe, you're now on record saying screw Chase Bank in an open meeting.
Yeah, that's right.
Recorded.
What can you do? Listen, I know everybody's getting poinked.
I agree with you. I think fees annoy me, especially in big accounts where we're parking money there for long periods of time. It doesn't make any sense. So I'm with you on the substance.
Well, I also think just having a discussion with them in general. I mean, right now, all different businesses right now are looking for new business. It's just having that discussion with them that, hey, we're looking into possible other, looking to change banks. Is there anything you can do better with our fees? That could be something, because I'm sure they wouldn't want to lose that business.
Yeah.
The other question I had too, I did hear that there's obviously credit card processing fees. Are we not charging whoever is using them, the consumers for using them, that fee? Because I thought I saw whenever credit cards are being charged that they're on the hook for using a credit card.
They
So
are, but the bank still charges us, I don't have the fee, I think it's 20 cents or something like that.
for transaction, right? I think.
Doesn't matter, even that the consumer pays it,
Well, the consumer is paying the percentage VIG.
Percentage.
We pay the per
Transaction.
transaction.
Gotcha. Okay.
All right. So not much anyone has to control about this, but as you can see, the big hit is on parking fines, where we're dramatically below budget and will remain so through the year. So
One of the largest impacts that COVID's having on our budget right here.
So most of the time we flagellate ourselves with the fact that we don't have enough parking. Communities that have a massive amount of parking are suffering an even bigger hit. So maybe there's some silver lining in an otherwise dark cloud. All right. I mean, neither of these lines are subject to discussion. They are what they are, right?
I mean, things may pick up a little bit now that the, through a per administrative order, we are now allowed to kind of go back to semi-opening the court. And we can bring people in to adjudicate some tickets. So, because right now we have a backlog of about 300 moving violations. We can start to move on. We were trying to do them.
Some of that may show up as revenue when people pay fines.
Yeah.
But much of that goes to the state, right?
Yeah, but you know, it's still half of something.
Yeah, right. So at any rate, so I mean, all in just for this year, looks like we're $170,000 short, give or take.
Yeah.
Which is not at all surprising. We've seen it coming.
No.
All right. Anybody have anything else to add to that?
I just had a question. Did you mention something about them doing plea bargains, like without being in person for moving violations?
Yeah, we were doing plea bargains, pleas by mail. That was going sort of slowly. The prosecutor was sending out a lot of letters, but then we were getting back very little response. You know, and my assistant was very diligent about staying on top of it, sending people reminders. You got a plea, please sign the plea back. There's a whole process. So we've kind of slowed that up now that we can try to get people in, because that's usually when people they'll come in, they get their plea, and then they pay right there and then that night.
Okay, gotcha.
There's no delay.
All right. Anything else on Justice Court? You're a free woman, Steph. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you, Steph.
Thank you.
Appreciate your good work as always.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'm going to sign off.
All right. Building and planning.
Hello, Robert.
Hello.
We've been talking all day long. All right. All right. So the full-time line is self-explanatory there. What about the part-time line? Is that your scanning person?
Yes. So the intern that we've had in the past, we actually didn't have any use this whole year. She was not in.
Because of COVID?
The hope would be that we get her back and focus on scanning the old files. You know, that's what she was doing, but we had an ability to go through a lot of files, old files, and get them all organized. So we're actually way ahead of her. When the time comes back, that's all she'll be doing basically the entire time she's in the office for that.
So she's available. She's just waiting for the moment to come back?
Correct.
And what kind of progress, let's say COVID eases sufficiently that she can be back and the FY 2022 spend the whole $8,000. Are we still talking some years before we get to the promised land of having it all done?
Possibly, and that's only because I was never expecting to get us as busy as we had this past year.
Right.
So it's hard to say, but we do want to get there eventually. We do.
Right, because you have to sort of set it up and sift through the files.
What happens is every document in the old files, we have to organize, and what we're actually doing is generating a permit in the municipal computer system. So it's not just documents being scanned in, they're scanned to a specific permit. We're actually generating the permits, giving in the old numbers, organizing it so you can find it.
And the historical data would then be online.
Correct. And then at a point when you do a parcel history for a title search or a homeowner, you can actually give them a printout and it will list every permit that was issued for that project, for that property.
Address.
And then any document associated with that permit, and that's what's taken time to go through that file because it's not in an organized fashion. It's not, nothing against a private building inspector, anything, just how things were done.
I was also going to say with affection for Mike Testa, he operated on the assumption that 3 copies of the same letter reduced the chance that you would not find it.
What also is a little difficult is he did some document scanning, but was just thrown in as thinking it's scanned, it's in the property folder, but you can't find it.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit that as well, but the majority is actually, because we have 2,500 parcels, 2,500 files, 2 to 10 permits, if not more, on each property.
Right.
Thousands of papers.
All right. So essentially that budget gives you somebody 17.5 hours, 52 weeks. All right. Here's hoping that can happen. Safety inspection, vacation buyback, conference and training. All seems reasonable. Anybody have any comment? Consultant steno for planning and zoning, ARB, similar number to past years. Is the vehicle repair, this is on the Leaf and the Escape,
Correct.
right? So you're bumping up that number in anticipation of,
Well, the Leaf is now a few years old. Tire changes, potential, you're anticipating, we had a cracked windshield on the truck. These things have popped up.
Lyndon says driving the Leaf is like driving a golf cart.
No, it's been great. Just you put the air conditioner on or the heat, and that battery drops very quickly.
All right, stop your complaining. Don't turn the heat on.
Oh, it's been
We're all
great.
gonna vote for electric vehicles for passengers from here on, so enjoy it.
The vehicle's been great. It has pickup. It's perfect for what we need to do.
Right. All right. So look at that, gas and diesel, $50 in a whole year. So, all right, outside service, private property maintenance for safe passage. So this would be the circumstance when we have a house not being maintained and we hire someone to do it.
That's correct.
Is that
That would
number?
be our last resort. We push to get the people accountable to get it done. Might give them a little time, but that would be when the instance where we're just getting no reply.
Are we getting anywhere with the Bedford Roadhouse by BRS? Eric, there was no response from that guy in Kansas or whatever, right?
No.
Can we?
The first storm, there was some action. And then Robert, was he responsive, the other snow events?
Yeah, just not the last 2 small ones. We chased them prior each time. I didn't hear a response. That was the only thing. But the 2 biggest storms, we did get the clearing.
All right, so I just can't imagine why they can't move on getting that house into private hands. But all right, copy machine dropped significantly from 2020, right? And from the adopted 2021 budget. What's with that?
I think we cut the lease in half. Got a brand new machine for half the cost.
Really? With all the capabilities you need.
Oh, yeah.
Great. All right. Uniform, straightforward. Dues and subscriptions seems reasonable. Software support, that's Municity. Are we using all the modules of Municity? Is there anything further you wish you had?
No, we're fine with the current. It's been working great. We are finding we're getting research and getting information. Municity has jumped to a cloud-based system, Municity 5. I've seen it, looked at it. It's where every town's going to eventually change to. We're not in immediate need to do that. But I wanted to see other towns kind of get the glitches out first. But it's a cloud-based, and it's eventually going to be where every town's going to have to go.
And would that significantly increase the annual fee?
Not, it will increase the annual fee probably to about 5,000. It's the initial jump to that system. But again, it's not something that will hurt us at any time. We're functioning perfect. Municity right now is more than capable of doing it. My concern is at some point, they're no longer going to service what we currently use.
So is there some sort of a conversion fee to send the stuff to the cloud, or is it simply transfer the files?
Now, that's the jump in the fee that we're looking at and analyzing what they are actually costing, because every municipality is completely different based on number of parcels, based on documents. And part of that is the process of changing over what you have in your system scan to the new system.
Okay. And then subsequently, when your part-time person is scanning, those scans would go direct to the cloud.
Correct. Well, we have that now, but it's from the village.
Yeah.
Be through municipal.
To Tyler.
Right. And what this system is also set up is for the eventual online permitting process application.
So at the point at which it went to the cloud, people could file for permits online.
Well, the Municity 5 has that set up where this currently doesn't.
Okay. So, I mean, you've got a lot on your plate at the moment, but without knowing a lot more about it, I would be inclined to think that when you're comfortable that the kinks have been worked out, we ought to jump on it, right?
And I'm trying to get a kind of an understanding. I want to go to other municipalities as well. 2 good colleagues have it. And I want to see kind of what they use, because every municipality kind of uses Municity just slightly different. There are some that use every modular. There are others that basically use it as a calendar. It is really a wide range still of different municipalities.
Right.
We're somewhere in the middle. We use it to the fullest without wasting money using it unnecessarily.
Right. All right. Anybody have any further comment before we switch to the revenue side?
Good.
Good.
All right. So that first line is building permit fees in essence, right? So the 2021 number substantially increased because of 70 Memorial, right?
No, actually, they're a part of it, but we have a fee structure set up with them. 52 to Pew came in, and it's been a tremendous increase just in even residential permits.
That's interesting.
We expected a slight dip, even initially that first month of March of this past year. It up to where I never even would have figured it ever would get to.
So residential activity is hot.
Booming. I have 2 potential new houses coming up.
Really?
Mottling and the Dewey property on Bedford Road across from Springfield Estates as you're heading out.
Right. Out of the ground new houses.
Brand new.
Okay. So the LaDuca property, part of that fee is already in this year's budget.
Which would be the site work, the cleanup, demo, foundation, and basically the shell frame of it.
Right.
Have they done any work on that property yet?
Yeah, so both buildings are gone. I was out there today speaking with them and they are starting, it's a combination of the cleanup and kind of the excavation. So they're kind of tearing into the incline of the wall as you come up to the intersection of Vanderbilt and Depew there.
Mm-hmm.
Basically right now, still site work.
Okay.
They had the fire there, which just due to the investigation impeded them from moving forward. But my understanding with the owner today, that's been cleared.
Okay. And when do you imagine the remediation would be completed?
I would say that it's part of kind of tied in with the foundation work, because part of it is also some of the excavation work. So I would say that work will probably be done in a 2 to 3 month period.
And it involves some of that soil being trucked out to a EPA approved site, or?
I personally don't think it's as much as what maybe the report and what they had talked about. I think a lot of it was contained on a lot of the paved area, which is already gone.
Mhm.
I think it really got into the soil. The area that they worked on the cars was all blacktop.
Okay. All right. Fees to zoning, fees to planning, you're envisioning both of those soften a little bit relative to last year's, well, no, not. Zoning boosted a little, yeah.
I think there'll be, I'm not anticipating even the FAR coming into play. I'm just figuring on zoning.
Right.
As the residential kicks up, we're seeing a little bit more that can trigger. We do work with the applicants to not say completely avoid zoning, but to help them guide through it at times, but they don't have to.
Yeah.
I think it'll be steady. I think planning completely dropped because we were not getting the significant change of occupancy or uses or intensity at the places. Even though we had 3 new businesses going, they were kind of as of right, not requiring. Right. But then I speak to the Soul Brewing today, and he's interested in expanding onto the rooftop.
Really?
Yep. So that would trigger a planning review. So see, out of the blue, you get a phone call. I meet him down there and talk about it. He said he's doing okay, better than he expected.
Would that require an elevator?
No, actually, because of it's a 3,000 square foot threshold in building code when you have an upper floor tied in with a lower floor, whether it require any accessibility.
Yep.
He's 1,600.
Huh.
There are a couple other hurdles, but from my understanding, his discussion, the building was designed, and we see it. It looks like it's more than capable of handling a second floor. He'd have some construction work to go in. It would be a bigger undertaking, so I was surprised to hear something of that nature. I'm just bringing it up how quickly a phone call can come in.
Exactly. What a difference a day makes, right?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, obviously we've got some vacant commercial space at the moment, but also nice to see some of the action. I saw Taco Project is open now and did quite a job on that space, boy.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Fish market should be coming in soon. Route to Rise, the old liquor store on Manville, is underway. They're doing construction in there, and Fleetwood Bakery took over the bakery on Wheeler.
Right. Are they making significant renovations in there?
No, but they are going to clean up the space.
Yeah.
So a new bakery is coming in.
In the same space, yeah. Q
Yeah,
sold it. Yeah.
I know, yeah. Okay, that's good that it's still going to be a bakery.
Yeah.
They have one in Mount Vernon.
Right.
They've been around.
Fleetwood section of Mount Vernon.
Okay.
Do we know when the fish market's gonna open?
I'd say they're probably about 75%, 80% there. I can tell you them and Route to Rise are having difficulty with Con Ed.
What's
Imagine
Route
that.
to Rise?
What was that?
What's Route to Rise?
So Route to Rise.
Crown site.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with them. Very nice people. They health style, similar to the fish market, where in a sense that you'll go in, you can get something made. You're not really sitting in there, limited seeing, similar like the fish market, more to go. But health background, healthy eating, healthy type food.
So it's like a takeout kind of.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Pretty decent sized space.
It sounds like we're moving a little bit towards healthful eating. There's the what's it, the cheese market right there, and the fish market, and now this Route to Rise. It just seems like it's developing not so much as restaurants, but as food establishments that can help you buy food for your home. It's nice.
I mean, certainly nice to see this activity and are getting some nice new businesses. Obviously, we've got some spaces that are going to need to fill up, but all right.
And all of them separately have specifically mentioned the activity that's going on in the village. The bakery alone said, we love it. We could.
Robert, I got one question about 70 Memorial Plaza. What's the status of that? Because it just seems like it's set with no activity or little activity going on the past couple of weeks. I'm just wondering what's going on.
So they're finalizing the contract with the steel company. The steel company will not step foot on a job site with the conditions that there are with the weather. So just liability. From a crane setup to the steel work to anything, that's kind of a union shop in a sense. So those guys won't touch that. I think initially there was an issue with the owner of the steel company contracting COVID. So they kind of just from their initial discussions with him, wasn't on site, just off site and I think slowed things up a little. But as I've always said, the developer there dots every I and crosses every T. And before he lets anyone go forward, he makes sure that he has it exactly the way he wants things. That may not bode well from a construction point of view, maybe a little bit slower, but it's never been a job site slowed by financial issues. It's just been by, personal decision, wanting to make sure he's crystal clear on what he's getting.
So likely the crane doesn't show up until the snow abates.
Yeah, I think their anticipation is early March, which I think is getting slightly pushed out a bit because of the weather.
Yeah.
Not just the snow, it's been the freezing temperature that's just, they don't really have a lot of room and they're already tied up everywhere. It's not that easy just to move snow everywhere. But they are there's work going on, you're just not aware of it. It's in the lower level of the garage.
Yeah, I'm just saying up on top, as I haven't seen anything going on up top, so.
Because that's next step is you'll start to see the steel get erected, like a steel shell, like the high rises down the city.
Okay.
That's a construction type that is above and beyond what he was required to do there. He could have built that out of wood.
All right. So licenses and permits was the last line. Obviously, that's a shot in the dark, but you're anticipating with the residential activity and the like that you'll see a little bump there. All right. Anybody have any questions and comments? You're our economic engine, Hughes.
We're happy. I love being busy. We have no problem. As long as I tell people all the time, if we can get to you, that's the most important part. Just being able to allocate the time for everyone.
Right.
But this is great. Better to be busy than not. It's just a matter of being able to still get everything done. As you know, today it takes up, your time can get taken up very quickly.
Yeah, like today.
We're doing well. No complaints. We're the best thing about it is everyone's accessible. Emails now more than ever. Meetings like this, I try to do whatever we can to keep things humming along and people get their permits.
Yep. Well, much appreciated. Positive reports all the way around from the good service from you and your department. So thank you, sir.
Okay.
Robert.
Thank you, Robert.
Yep. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mary Healy, thank you as well.
Thank you.
And-
Have a
and
good
for
night.
Thank you, Mary. Thank you, Healy. Pleased we haven't officially met, but now we've met via Zoom, which qualifies in the current world for officially meeting. I guess that's kind of face to face. So there's an elbow bump.
Sounds good.
Glad to have you on the team.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
So, guys, I think you should have on your calendars, we've got 2 more budget meetings next week, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, you guys didn't put any, for doing this type of a meeting yet, did you? I didn't see it.
Say that again?
For doing this type of a meeting, you need a code number and whatever. And you didn't do it yet for those 2 meetings, did you?
No, not yet. We'll send the Zoom link out later on this week.
All right.
All right, so Monday, the 1st, we've got DPW, water refuse, and then Tuesday, police.
That's correct.
Okay.
All right. We're look at that. We're a little ahead of schedule here.
Could we possibly do it at one meeting? I just don't know. I mean, could we possibly do it, let's say Monday evening, both water refuse and police, or would it be too much to do in one night?
Those are our 2 bigger departmental budgets. I think we're probably better off splitting the workload over 2 nights.
Okay.
All right, so I have a couple of things to report. I talked at some length with the folks at the Burns a couple of weeks ago, and as you know, they remain closed, but in an effort to enliven the street, they have hatched this light installation that they were actually hoping was going to be unveiled this week. And then as you saw, the weather got in their way and it's getting pushed off, so it'll have to get rescheduled. But the idea there is to use their storefront and windows as a sort of a light installation that would brighten the downtown of Pleasantville. They got a donor to assist in the doing of that. So was it today or the end of last week that Governor Cuomo allowed movie theaters to open at maximum occupancy 50, I think, something to that effect. I'm not certain that the Burns will decide to do that yet. Part of the question is, will it be possible to avoid losing a lot of money in doing that? Will people want to come, and can you deliver a positive experience? They have invested quite a bit of money in HVAC improvements, as you perhaps saw in the agenda. The library is proposing to do as well, and are also looking at some other improvements, sort of taking advantage of this fallow time to make some improvements in the building. But meanwhile, like every business in that circumstance, they've had to trim their sales in significant ways and are waiting for the moment when they sort of try to edge back. Interesting time. The movie theater in Bronxville is closing and the building is up for sale. It was owned by Bowtie Cinema. And obviously in our parts, the two big multiplexes on 9A, the Sawmill multiplex is now an Audi dealership, and the Greenberg multiplex is down there by Sam's Club is soon to be a ShopRite. So,
well, the Jacob Burns Film Center though has a different aura, different clientele.
Yeah.
Different, it's not the same as just current movies. No
doubt.
Current movies are truly a thing of the past, I think. I don't know.
Well, I mean, where I was headed with that is that the Burns is, I think, cautiously confident that they'll emerge from this stronger than ever, for a whole series of reasons. Some of them are the ones you just mentioned, Joe, but added to that the idea that the business of sharing an experience with a group in a theater is different from watching it at home, and there's some interest and longing in that. So certainly seeing the opportunity for the Burns to come back to life is a consummation devoutly to be wished by the businesses that depend on that flow. Certainly big help to the restaurants, certainly a help to the bookstore and the Glass Onion and donuts and all those kinds of places. So
good Hamlet
There are people who think that the post-pandemic era could be an equivalent to the Roaring '20s, which is not that hard to imagine.
Meaning what? Everyone cuts loose and is
meaning that people are just desperate, to have a nice time and be with other people and do everything that they couldn't do during the pandemic. That there could be this resurgence of public life. It'll take a while if that happens, but yeah.
I think certainly I've got that same sense that there's a lot of pent up interest. I mean, kind of fun to hear that Soul Brewing is thinking of kicking the tires of whether they could do a rooftop thing. These are sort of elements that would add to our downtown kind of unique and interesting elements. So, we also have on the agenda tonight the resolution to hold a public hearing on breaking the tax cap, which is again just a pro forma activity that we do every year. It doesn't suggest that we necessarily intend to do it, but we set ourselves up every year so that we have the flexibility to do it. Fair to say, Mr. Morrissey?
Fair to say.
So, at the moment we're a little early in the game, but as we have seen in the recent finance reports, some things have come in COVID affected, and some things haven't been hit as hard as we expect them to be, sales tax being among them. So it does seem that there's a reasonable argument that Westchester has benefited from a sales tax standpoint by the money folks are not spending in New York City. Because New York City sales tax has collapsed, right? I think it may be the biggest drop anywhere in the state. So
People are moving out of the city. And I tell you, we can't even find houses for people. I mean, you know, it's ridiculous, but true that people are paying big money for houses in Westchester, in Pleasantville, and Briarcliff, and Chappaqua, and everywhere. That's all.
So, I mean, we certainly, in one perverse respect, have benefited from that. And yet, as I think I might have mentioned before, our wagon is tied to New York City in a very significant way. And I certainly don't leave myself rooting against New York City, because part of the reason for our prosperity is the city itself. So, you know, of course, the death knell of cities has been predicted many times over a century and more, and has never proven to be true. So clearly there's a big switch. I read an interesting article not so long ago that suggested that some of the flight from the city may actually not be so much a change in the group of people who envision leaving the city for the suburbs and beyond, but just accelerating the schedule for the folks who had that on their radar screen. But who knows? I talked to somebody the other day who says up in, you know, the Beacon area, people are buying houses sight unseen. So nice work if you can get it right.
Since we have a little downtime, I just wanted to bring up the fact that I sent you guys all a Survey Monkey version of the leaf blower survey, which I'd like to get out soon. So
yeah, so I looked at it, I replied, piggybacked on David's, it looks good.
Okay.
I did too.
All right, good. It was a little tutorial in how to work Survey Monkey with the like.
Is Shane asking a question? What is your?
May I?
Yeah.
I just had one question regarding the forum that you held last Wednesday on the 17th that Paul did in Spanish. Is there language? Doesn't it make sense if to post it that I have the title and everything in Spanish, so if people are looking at it and they speak Spanish, they know what it is? Or should I just post it in English? And
no, I think you should. In fact, when he blasted it out, we had it in Spanish too, didn't we?
Yes, we did.
So I can just use that Spanish there and I should be good, Paul?
Yeah, it's good.
Okay.
Yeah, I looked at it.
Okay. Yeah, I'm ready to post it. I just want to make sure I was using the right language before I did.
Yeah, no, that was good.
Okay.
Yep.
How did it go? I'm sorry I wasn't able to be there. How?
I'll be right back. I'm refilling my coffee.
Okay. Paul,
I think it went. I think it went great. I was really happy about it. I learned a lot of things that I didn't know, and I think that was a very positive thing. And I shared with everyone that we were going to be getting this video of it ready, so a lot of people are eager to see it, just because they couldn't be there on that point. So I think, and a lot of information came out that I think not only helps our Spanish-speaking residents, but it also helps everyone else to just kind of get information in general about, you know, the concerns that non-speaking residents may have in anything when it comes to dealing with the police. So I thought that was very educational. And I even thought it was something that was really good for anyone outside of Pleasantville, our neighbors, for people that are in transit through Pleasantville, work in Pleasantville, or have family or friends in Pleasantville. So I thought it went really well, and I was really thankful to Chief and Officer Garcia, I believe his name was. And I thought it went really well. I was really happy with it.
That's great. I'm so glad you did that.
And right back at you, Paul. You were great. So And then, I would expect that that's a resource that online is going to be useful to lots of people. And you have, Paul, the connections to get that word out there.
Absolutely. Yeah, my plan is to share that on many different Westchester groups of either immigrant population groups or just general communities that have a large amount of Hispanic or Spanish speaking residents, to get that out there. And I think it'd be a good example for other villages. I know a friend of mine that is in another village that is involved in politics as well, and has already said that they want to see this because I think there'd be something good that they do for their villages. So I think it's definitely a good model that we can do for them to get that out there.
Great. And then somewhere on your grid, a big Pleasantville welcome to Michael Peppard. Hello, Michael.
Hello.
By all reports, the March 16 election is uncontested. Me running for mayor, Michael and David for the 2 trustee spots. We'll send off Joe Stargiotti with an appropriate send-off. Have to think about what an appropriate send-off for Joe Stargiotti looks like.
Mayor, truthfully, I don't need anything. I'm happy to be here and I'm happy to go.
What, shall we buy you a one-way bus ticket with that?
Stay right here, but not on the board, that's all.
Yeah.
Joe's Monday nights will be confined to sitting on his porch and saying, "Get off my lawn."
At any rate, that said, it's certainly in everyone's interest to make clear that everyone votes. As we found out the hard way, you cannot make the assumption that an uncontested election is in the end uncontested. So, but thank you, Michael. I'll look forward to serving with you, assuming the cards are played as we imagine they will be. So,
yeah, thanks so much. I will not leave anything to chance and make sure that everyone gets out there to vote.
Exactly right.
Yep, and got some lined up ways to do that. So even in this digital COVID campaign era, should be all right.
So can we push off the Thursday 7:30 because it didn't make it onto my calendar and I have the competing meeting.
All right. Well, so what would you? What
can we do it after? How long? What of the Monday and Tuesday night? We don't have meetings. We just have work sessions. Are either one of them likely to be shorter than the other?
They're 2 very big departmental budgets, so I wouldn't couple anything with those.
You think it's a 2-hour meeting for each one of them, or how long do you think that will go?
It's hard to say. I could envision it going, an hour, 45 minutes, 2 hours.
Just really, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and I think police reform, we should probably not be.
Yeah, so I don't know how long it'll take, obviously. The idea next will be when we feel like we have coalesced around in broad strokes, at least a set of recommendations to sort of bounce that off the community.
Yeah, I'd like to delay that anyway, because we just saw obviously something for the first time tonight. So
all right, so what might that look like? We've got two meetings next week already, but I don't think we can extend it beyond next week. Do you think?
How do we get the draft to the public?
Huh?
When do we have to get the draft proposals to the public?
We don't. We're obligated to. Well, we're obligated to issue this report by April 1.
No, I get that. I'm just saying, like, what was on the calendar for what do we promise in terms of when we said we were going to?
I mean, I don't think we promised, other than to say we were shooting for the end of February. Okay. So, I mean, I think we're in the ballpark here, but we certainly want to be in a position to work through further thoughts that we all have and whatever feedback we get from the community, right? Mm. So next week is March 1 to 5. We're already in the saddle for Monday, March 1 and Tuesday, March 2.
I have a meeting on Wednesday with DEI.
Yeah, so the Thursday, maybe the 4th.
So, I mean, that's okay with me.
My husband may divorce me, but
Yeah, right.
Chief,
That's
you
gonna
okay
be
with
fun.
that?
I'm okay with that.
Yeah. Eric Grutzner, does that work for you?
Moving to Thursday, the 4th? Yeah, I can,
Pushing it off by a week.
yes,
at 7:30.
that's fine.
Eric Marcy and Noreen, that work?
That works. I'll update the invite right now.
Okay. There's our answer. All right, so the two Erics, we had a discussion today with Eric Gordon of Keenan Bean to talk about draft recommendations, and that, of course, was a Zoom call with 3 Erics. Blessedly, Grutzner spells it with a K, although that doesn't help much verbally. So, call this morning with the 2 Erics, Noreen and me, and it also included Jackie Goldberg from Keenan Bean, our labor attorney, and Chief Grutzner, because there are some legal issues attached to anything we might do. They offered some suggestions that are incorporated into what got sent to you shortly ago. And let me just pull that up. So let's just, I think obviously everybody needs to digest this a bit, but it is certainly not ready for prime time. I see Abby is on, and I just caution you that this is not what we are putting out yet, because we haven't worked our way through it. So it falls into 3 big categories. Recommendation 1, enhanced training for police officers. Recommendation 2, communication, outreach, and engagement. And recommendation 3, policies and procedures. And recommendation 4, enhanced collection and analysis of data. So that feeds out of the discussions we've had. And as you can see, I'll just buzz through these quickly and interrupt me if you have a thought that you want to throw into the hopper on any of these as we go. So subcategory A, implicit bias training, a commitment to ongoing training for every police officer to avoid discrimination or bias in all interactions. Provide a combination of outside instruction and in-house training to ensure broad perspective, continued conversations, and personal awareness of bias. Evaluate training to ensure effectiveness. Timeline immediate, procedure, utilization of the most current training materials available.
I guess my only comment about that is it's potentially a bit vague.
Well, so yes, although I mean I think it's kind of a statement of policy and intent. Are you thinking you would imagine, say, a curriculum?
Well, I guess what I would want to do, you know, we had talked about kind of dividing up the categories and each of us focusing on an area, which didn't happen. But
yeah, which is my fault. I didn't send you the transcripts. Although I will say, I think I went through 2 of the transcripts myself, feeding out stuff, and did not come up with a list that was different from what in big picture I already remembered. So it's
well,
not really
let's say, for example, if I were to take this piece,
which you're welcome to.
I would want to speak to experts. Sorry. You know, I would speak to the chief. Hi, chief, to get a better sense of like specifically what kinds of training exercises are currently being used, and then, you know, get some professional input about what the thoughts are on what kinds of training is more or less effective, you know, to get a better sense about what we might be missing. Because it all sounds good, but it could be completely meaningless depending on. You know.
Right. So I guess my question about that, I don't disagree with you at all, other than to say part of what we're doing and on the schedule we're doing it is to say, here are the issues we're going to tackle. And then the way we tackle them obviously is a much more detailed process going forward.
Is the next piece. So maybe even if we could be more concrete about that part of it.
Okay.
know?
All right. So again, you take a shot at it, right? In the next few days,
Sure. Well, maybe, I mean, just right now, after, and I'll stop interrupting, but
no.
After you go through this outline, maybe we could just use this as something to carve up and each take pieces of to provide more feedback at whatever our next meeting is going to be.
So that's fine by me, other than to say I think some folks will doubtless have comments in all of the areas. So
well,
let's
of course, I mean, it doesn't mean that we can't pitch in on anything, right. But I think given that we all have plenty on our plates, sometimes it's good to have a homework assignment for me, as much as anybody else.
Right. All right. So subcategory B, de-escalation training, commitment to train with intent for police officers to respond to calls with the initial action of de-escalation. Specialized training to focus on situations including people with mental illness, mental health crisis, or experiencing trauma. Evaluate opportunities with other law enforcement partners for crisis intervention training for mental health emergencies, which is aligned with what the county's proposal also calls out, which is at the moment short of the actual creation of that crisis intervention support group, but I'm cautiously optimistic that will happen. George Latimer has talked about it a number of times. It appears in the county's proposals, and all of us on the municipal side have asked for that as well. So I know the chief continues to have exchanges with the SEPTA special education PTA folks as well on that subject. So use of force training, evaluate current training and ensure compliance with DOJ use of force training requirements.
So can I just fill in on a little bit on that?
Please do.
So long story short, long way around, basically the Department of Justice is making sure that all the police departments in the country, through their own regulatory agencies, ours is through New York State, is participating in appropriate training, things like, making sure that we're training not to use chokeholds and other, neck control holds, things like that. So just in the past week or so, we received our letter that we were in compliance with our testing procedure. We attested that was the case. And so we are currently, this is training that we were providing already. We just had to sign off that we do the training and we do it, on a regular basis. So this is not something we have to work to attain. This is something we just have to continue with the way we've been doing it to be within compliance for DOJ.
Okay. Anybody else have further comment there? All right, so recommendation 2, the category of communication, community outreach and engagement. A, outreach to community groups, continue to identify and engage community groups with identifiable needs. Strive to identify means of communication with each group. Expand registrants in the existing police department program for community members to register information on household members with special needs, mental health issues, or medical issues to assist with police response. Obviously, that is all entirely subject to a family's desire to be included in that. There's no requirement of any kind. Timeline immediate, procedure, communications campaign to engage community groups and educate the public on the registered program. B, increase community policing, create a more visible presence of police officers on patrol shifts by encouraging patrol by foot, bicycle, and public interaction in the downtown areas at public events. Timeline by July 1, procedure, re-examine patrol resources. So obviously that's, and perhaps we can sharpen that up in terms of its specificity. Part of our question there is what the cost implications are. The first goal, the chief is cautiously optimistic that he can achieve certainly a piece of this with existing resources, but the resources we have are subject to unexpected changes. Somebody gets injured, somebody gets sick, whatever. Have I got that right, Chief?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think the first thing that we do, especially as, hopefully, COVID starts to relax a little bit and things become a little bit, start to return back to normal, as we find out what we can do with as little of an allocation of other resources. And then we come back and we look at what we've done and what we've accomplished, and we see if potentially we are in a place where we're satisfied with that, or we realize that we could potentially do more.
So may I ask, in an example like this, who is overseeing this process? Is this the police department, you guys that are vouching to do this? Are we, the village board, checking in with you at a certain point? Are we thinking for some of these we might organize some kind of subcommittee, or is that not a helpful idea? What's the structure for seeing this going forward?
So, where the rubber meets the road is how many hours and how much time we can allocate with the schedule and the resources that we have. And I think, we should be able to come back to the board within a relatively reasonable amount of time and say, this is what we've accomplished so far. We've had X number of shifts with extra officers where we could put somebody on foot for the entire shift. We could put somebody on a bicycle patrol. These are the different community events that we participated at, and then let the board decide, what, I think we're good, or potentially, so what are if we don't think we've done quite enough, what are the options to moving to the next level? So, I mean, I think I don't know on a day-to-day basis, we could set out some milestones and mile markers where we think review seems reasonable. And then just, I think it's a constant conversation as far as, not constant, but it's a regular conversation as far as, where are we, and is that, are we showing the commitment to community policing that we want to get across?
Yeah, I guess the question I'm asking is more open-ended. I mean, maybe this is a bad example because it seems pretty straightforward, and I have faith that you guys will move forward with this, and this seems like an easy thing for us to touch base with you. So I'm not sure this even needs an answer right now, but I guess a broader question I have is, what is the kind of infrastructure for seeing this forward? Since a lot of this proposal is, we plan to do these things going forward.
Yeah, and I guess to add on to your question, but at this stage in the game, it's not clear to me, is this sort of what we heard from the community filtered against what you're able to do, what the lawyers tell we're able to do? Is this your proposals that we're seeing that are essentially filtered against the community needs, or how did this, I know that there was a meeting in which this was formulated, but I'm not sure, if we're sort of effectively hearing what you think that we should do, and now we're reacting to it, or what the intention is.
So I mean, I think, as I mentioned to you, David, Eric, Noreen, the chief, and I have talked a number of times about how to give structure to this, and apologies all around, I didn't get you those transcripts as I promised to do last time. I'm happy to do it. I will say a bunch of them, the use of force one as one good example, did not generate a lot of comment. It was a very useful presentation, but mostly based on the chief's detailed description of all of those issues. So if you see here things that you think the public was raising that haven't been included,
Yeah, no, it's
bring
not,
them up, right?
it's not, and it's not a criticism, you know,
Yeah,
there's
no, I
lots of ways to get to the same end goal. I just want to make sure, because I feel like our mandate here is not just to sort of listen to everybody's complaint and everybody's dream and synthesize them into a document and then knock down the things that just can't be done. It's more to actually figure out how can we take this moment where everybody from you know, the police department to, you know, civic groups, whether or not they comment publicly, are at least seriously thinking about this question about how can we improve our relations, how can we make policing more effective, how can we have a better dialogue as a community, and as, you know, as elected representatives of the people in the village, to, you know, sort of to bring our creativity and the result of the many individual conversations that we've had with groups and citizens to this. So I just want to make sure that we sort of understand as we move into next week how to do that. For instance, like, I definitely feel like we are going to need, or at least I'm as a trustee going to need the opportunity to have a briefing from Keenan Bean as well, because there's things that I don't understand about 50A and about, you know, what we're legally allowed to do and how that will fall out on us. And I'd like to be able to ask the lawyers directly. And then, you know, and so that, you know, that's a question. Like, one thing that's not in here that I thought was a great idea, that's actually Chief Grutzner's idea, is, you know, sort of creating a Yelp for interactions with the police force in the village that's not punitive, that doesn't tie into any of our officers' pay or disciplinary actions or anything like that, but gives us a barometer of how people are feeling about their engagement with the police department, knowing that, you know, anybody who just got a ticket may be upset, but they'll be upset in March, just like they would have been upset in February. And we'll tend to see over time patterns as to whether, you know, we're either suddenly things are going a little bit better and we want to understand why, or if there's anything that we should be concerned about, we can see that cropping up in data. Eric, your specific idea was, well, what if, you know, we gave people a card, you know, after an officer sat with them saying, here's where you can, you know, just make a anonymous, informal, you know, whatever kind of comment that you have about our interaction, you can make it here. And I actually think that kind of thing would be a good idea. So, you know, the idea of and I know that you talked about the fact that the county or the state is going to change also data collection, which will help us to know, like, I'm sure there are sunset towns somewhere in New York State, and the only way to know where they are is to know, do more people of color, more college students, more people driving crappy cars get pulled over than anybody else, you know, and that's, you know, I think something that's helpful to measure. Sorry, that was a lot.
All right, so David, happy to line up a Keenan Bean call with all of us. That likely needs to be another meeting, right?
Or what if we just tack it on we'll maybe go into executive session or whatever at the end of the next Thursday thing?
It's fine by me, but I would have assumed you wanted to do it before then.
Or, yeah, no, we can set up a time during the day, during the week next week. I think there's no more evenings available. So
that meeting is going to be the meeting during which we're taking public comment?
Well, so the idea was to say, hey, this is where we are. This is what we're looking at.
Oh, okay.
What do you all think?
Document, like at least a solid draft document.
Correct.
I will say I hadn't had the chance to read this before the meeting because we just got it, but I was looking through it, and I do like a lot of the suggestions. So I just wanted to give you some positive feedback.
Right. Look, there's no, you know, it's just a starting point. I think, speaking personally, I think it's a very decent starting point, but have at it, right?
One thing maybe to add to, forgive me if it's already there and I somehow overlooked it, but one thing that came up was the idea of having more public forums during which people could meet individual police officers, figuring out like the sort of the best way to do more of a get to know you.
The coffee with a cop kind of idea.
Well, it doesn't seem like coffee. Children, can you be quiet? I don't know. Perhaps it's my room. They should be asleep. But anyway, the coffee with a cop. I don't know. Tell me, Chief Grutchner, you tell me if I'm wrong, but I have the impression that that's not as successful as one wishes it were. That maybe we need to think about a different forum. You know, have the police come more to where people are already gathering, whether it's the schools or different community gatherings.
Sure. I mean, that's definitely part of the plan, sort of more interactions with people on non-emergency sort of situations. The issue that we have with, so we all usually have a couple of, we'll talk about it, let's say a high school football game. We'll usually have a couple officers there, myself, the lieutenants, a few detectives. There's a pretty large group of a contingent of officers there usually. Unfortunately, what we tend to see, and I'm sure it's the same thing as with board members, is you'll occasionally get somebody who wants to talk to you about a specific incident, but you tend to end up talking to the people who you already know. You end up talking, people are there to watch a game. They're not really there to have a conversation about something that's on their mind. Whereas coffee with a cop or something, it's always been a pretty successful program in other places, in the fact that it's, okay, we are here to get to know you, to hear what your concerns are, and to see if we can, find a way to sort of move them forward. It's almost like having, this is where your beat cop is, your officer on foot. He's going to be right there. So make sure you come with something that you want to discuss.
Yeah.
So, the challenges that we've had with coffee with a cop, and the fact that we haven't got as much interaction as we maybe thought we might have, I don't know if that's because people were still intimidated by the officers and didn't want to come forward. I don't necessarily believe that's the case. I think more than likely, under the, I think because we do have a relatively forward-facing department, we have a pretty responsive department to the public. They didn't need to find the time to have a conversation. That's sort of how we considered it. I'm not saying that's the only reason, obviously, but
would you consider?
Well, I wonder if we could also, I wonder if we could also be helpful. I don't think, I'm not even thinking necessarily of a forum to discuss issues, but just getting to know individual officers. So since we have more of a sort of communications operation in place now, if we could use that and profile different officers, for example, so that with a picture and maybe some information about them.
Well, how about video instead? What if we did 1-minute videos that we could sort of push on social, where the cop talks about their life, how they got into policing, 10 questions or whatever kind of thing. Because I think that one of the things that can break down the barriers between different groups, particularly people who might be nervous about their encountering somebody in a uniform, is just knowing who they are as a person. And, when you see a person behind the uniform, that helps for sure.
That one I'd have to think about a little bit. Putting, obviously the officers are here, and when they're working and they're in public and they're dealing with people face to face, absolutely. Posting and blasting officers in the sense of getting to know them on a personal level, I'm not going to say that I'm completely against it, but I don't know that I've had enough time to sort of consider what all the ramifications of that might be.
We don't have any cartel issues where they need to be wearing masks or anything, do we?
No, I don't think that we should be all right with that part of it. But I don't know that I'm prepared to make a final comment on that one. That's an interesting consideration that I'm not prepared to answer at this point.
So, I mean, the other thing I would say is, and it's not like there's a clear answer to this, but part of what we're doing here is establishing a focus on some new pathways, and then the proof will be in actually doing it. And the desire to be more specific is understandable and good in one respect, but we're not quite sure how this, I mean, sort of what we're trying to say in a number of these categories is we've highlighted some items that have become clear to us, including better transparency and better communication. And we're gonna think about that on a periodic scheduled basis throughout the year, every year going forward. And that alone is not only, I think, a good change and a response to the moment, as you said, David, but also the sort of muscle memory that means as the village board changes the cast of characters over years, that focus remains.
Yeah, and I think part of what we have to find a way to do in this moment is figure out how to change the basic relationship, right? For sure, just like if you're, you know, the captain on a passenger ship, you've got serious duties, you're responsible for people's lives. I'm pretty sure when you're in international water, you could have somebody shot legally, but you're part of what you need to do also is to create a relationship with people who are under your care. And I think too many times, you know, in policing, because there's that chance or the inevitability that sometimes you're going to have these very serious encounters, you know, where you want to minimize the risk to the officers' lives, not hurt anybody else, etc., that, you know, you can get into a situation where everything gets approached through that lens. But if there's a chance to reset where we really see this, you know, and people you know, I'm not talking just from the perspective of police officers, and people in the village really see these as people who are there to help them, to help things run better, fundamentally in the village, to help, you know, people not get into car accidents and find things they're looking for and all of that, that would sort of change the dynamic. And that's obviously what community policing is about, but, you know, there's probably other parts to that.
Well, I mean, the good news for us, which is not to say that there aren't important changes to be made and great progress to be made, but I think lots of folks also in their commentary ratified that they felt the police were doing what they wanted them to do, and they felt that it was, you know, a Pleasantville appropriate force. So, you know, we're building from a position of a pretty solid foundation, which I think gives us an opportunity to think divergently down the road, which is what we're trying to do. So, but I don't think, I mean, certainly the feedback we got in the 5 sessions was not overwhelmingly, I don't know who these people are, and I wish I did.
Paul, was there anything that came up in the Spanish language section that you feel like is missing? I mean, I know it's hard to ask you that on the spot, but since we're talking about it.
I felt, I mean, satisfied with the answers because I specifically asked the chief questions in advance, and I thought that we covered everything that I was most interested with. So on my end.
But I mean, with respect to so you're talking about this draft document?
No. I'm saying not about the document, about what I asked. I haven't, honestly, I also haven't been able to see this document then since we just got it.
Oh, okay. So yeah, I'm just.
Well, so
I think if I could just, you know, some of the questions that we did get in the chat tended to be more, and anybody who was there can obviously expand on this or correct me if I'm wrong, but more specifics, specifically, do we have the, whether either a specific incident or, it may be helpful if the officers, for instance, learned a couple quick phrases or had them written down and had the opportunity to do them to overcome sort of some fear or some trepidation that somebody might have in dealing with the officers. It was more that type of concern. I think sort of improving on what we were doing already, as opposed to, pointing out some sort of real failure on our part so far.
So you don't feel like there's anything to add to this list that came out of that meeting?
I mean, I think some of what came out of that meeting is probably incorporated with, some of the outreach things that we want to do, some of the types of initiatives we want to take, where we're just trying to push out more information, more interaction, more accessibility to the police department through our what we're doing.
Right. So, I mean, the Spanish language session was a good example of a couple of the other sessions where a tremendous amount of information was provided, and we got some questions in the chat or whatever. But I think that the biggest takeaway from some of those videos and the PowerPoints that Chief put together is this source of information that's available to folks if they're interested in availing themselves of it, and obviously a source of information for all of us. So I think we know more, for example, about the history of use of force and the like, the history of complaints and the like, and that process has made clear that we needed to know more, and it has been beneficial to have achieved that. And the interesting piece about it, which is maybe not surprising, is that we haven't gotten a tremendous amount of feedback on any of these subjects. Certainly, plenty of people have commented in one way or another, but part of it is we've already discussed. People are a little bit reticent about commenting in a public taped session to begin with. Some people chose to appear in the chat as a result, and other people who are having some concerns may dig into what was out there on the web. But in the aggregate, we did not get a lot of people expressing a lot of concerns about, for example, use of force. And that's not really surprising because, per the Chief's report, we don't use force with any kind of regularity, which is great news for all of us, but maybe redoubles the issue that when something isn't a fairly regular part of policing, it's even more important for folks to be constantly thinking about what the policies and parameters are. So, unlike the circumstances, I've been paying some attention to the police reform process in other communities. And, there are some communities, especially communities that have a significant fraught relationship with some part of their community. There is a lot more feedback. I say that as no criticism, it's just a manifestation of where we are in this community. And it both is good news and at the same time an indication that we have to dig a little harder on our side of the table to make sure that we're cracking the door open wider and people feel more free to come in. So I really do think I hear you, Nicole, about the idea of trying to be more specific. In the end, the idea about, for example, police training, I think will work itself into a curriculum of sorts, right?
Yeah.
Right.
I just glancing at it, because again, this is the first time I've seen it.
Yeah.
So I haven't looked at it carefully, but I would say that for me, that's the one weakness of it, is that I think with respect to training in particular, if it were possible to be a little bit more concrete, maybe not about the nitty gritty of the kind of training, but at least about how we arrive to those decisions.
Could I suggest this as a possibility, and you guys tell me if it makes sense or you prefer to do it another way? what if each of us takes this Word document and in a different color, types into it comments, thoughts, concerns right within the document at the place where the thought arose. Does that make sense?
Sure.
And give that back to Eric and Noreen, and then we'll all see everybody's in response. What is that? Does that seem to make sense?
Looks good.
David, you think that makes sense?
David, you're on mute, honey.
It's fine. It's a lot, so I may focus on one area.
Yeah, whatever, right.
Yeah.
Not everybody will have, I mean, if some folks may say, hey, I think this covers it in some section, but doesn't in another, so.
So maybe would it just be best if we all kind of look at it and give our own edits, maybe? Because
yeah, that's
you
what
know, there may be a section that I do that maybe David thinks it's differently, or you know,
Yeah.
vice versa.
So how about this? How about if everybody can just literally mark up the document, send it back in Word format to Eric and Noreen, and then they'll send it back to all of us. So everybody's back to all of us. And then we'll see what we have from there. And then I'll reach out to everybody and say, hey, here's what it seems we can do in order to incorporate all of this. Or here's where there's disagreement or conflict or question or a legal matter or something like that. So is it realistic for folks to be able to do that, say, by Thursday?
The day after, so 3 days from now?
Yeah, is that realistic?
How about Friday?
Okay, Friday.
And could I just jump in with something real quick? And it goes back to Trustee Asquith's point about, you know, the specificity of it.
Yep.
I'll be honest, I have advocated for more generality in the document and in the report that goes to the state, not for a lack of accountability, but much more for the fact that as we move forward, you know, this is very much, in my opinion, a first step as we continue to do this work and as we move forward. And I'm expecting that, you know, we're going to be referring back to this document and to this process for a long time. It's going to just become part of what we do. And so the lack of specificity is much more for the freedom and the ability to drill down in directions that maybe we don't even anticipate at this point, as opposed to, you know, putting ourselves sort of, okay, this is what we, you know, we want to have this type of training. To your point before about the training, one of the reasons there isn't specific training listed is because at this point, there's so much demand for training that we haven't been able to get people to the training we want to get them to. It's one of our priorities, and we have someone scheduled to go to a train the trainer type of thing for principled policing. But this officer was scheduled for that training on multiple occasions already, and so many people signed up that we didn't get in. So it's very much to stay flexible in our approach moving forward as to why I advocated for these bullet points being written the way that they were.
The document that goes to the state, is it a document essentially of intention? Is it a commitment? Is it a legal thing? What is it exactly that we're doing here from a legal?
I mean, I think it is probably not a legal document. I think it's certainly a statement of intention. You know, if you go back to the governor's handbook that was issued along with this, they left a lot of flexibility for communities to craft a process that felt appropriate. So I think some people are going to come, some places will doubtless come back with documents, results, strategies that are very, very different from what we might, but both are compliant with the governor's executive order. So,
but in other words, if we get a year into this and we're like, oh, wow, you know, putting a policeman on foot really didn't work out the way that we thought it did, we're not bound to follow.
We can change. Right.
Yeah.
This is no, honest, go ahead.
My understanding is that the governor and I suppose the legislature or whoever was involved, but the governor mostly said, I don't know what your community needs. I don't know what your community wants. I don't know how to tell your police, or otherwise he could just do a broad police, how they should work and disseminate it through the state. Instead, he said, each community, you just come up with your own. It can be the same as it was before, if that's what your community wants. You got to be careful about it, but basically said, you community, do what you want and figure out the best policing you can do. And that's what we're going to do. I mean, that's it.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think is what he said. So
there isn't really a reason we couldn't put, if we wanted to, if we thought it was the most useful thing for us, we could be pretty specific, knowing that we're not bound if life takes us another direction to.
Sure. Other than, that specific, it's more of a compact with our community, so to speak.
Right.
I don't think that Albany's going to come back and say, how dare you change that? I don't think that's the situation at all. But
I do think that there are some specific elements of this code book, let's say, or whatever you want to call it. It's not a code book, but a booklet that tells you how. So, for example, a neck hold, choking somebody, we know that's bad. We don't want that. Okay. But whether there's a police officer on foot in the nice weather, we can try it. If you don't like, if it doesn't work, if it's not right, you don't have to do that. So there are certain things that are, sort of mandatory, and other things, many things are just going to be optional, really, for a better word.
Yeah, interestingly, and it's obviously not going to affect us, but the governor in the draft executive budget has some penalties built in to communities that do not take this seriously and file a report. That will not capture us, and I don't think any, to my knowledge, no community in Westchester is at risk of running afoul of that. So, all right, so mark up the document, return it to Eric and Noreen by Friday, and then we'll reflect that all back to all of you. Sound good?
It's good.
Okay.
Leave it up in Novus, please, so I can grab a copy for myself. I just didn't grab a copy. I looked.
You have it in your email.
What's that?
Noreen emailed it.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
Today, you'll see it there.
Thank you.
All right. Anything else? We have a brief executive session, right? All right.
Just real quick, I'm also, if this week anybody has any questions, please feel free to reach out. And if there's any clarity I can give individual members, I'm happy to do that.
Okay.
Thanks. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
I emailed the call-in number earlier.
All right.
Okay. All right.
I guess we should have officially motioned to go into executive session at the end of the regular meeting, but we'll do it here in our work session. Motion to go into executive session on matters of personnel.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right.
All right, here we go. Call in. Thank you all.